You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and joining me from the Coaster101 team this week is Nick Weisenberger. Nick, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. How are you, Andrew?
I am doing great. We've got a great guest as well joining us. And for longtime listeners of the Coaster101 podcast, you'll remember a year ago, almost exactly to the week, there was a big announcement out in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, and it was actually broken by past podcast guest and friend of the show, Arthur Levine. But there was this roller coaster that was going to open at Glenwood Caverns. And I remember the timeline of the news broke. I think it was like a Monday or a Tuesday, and we were able to get Nancy on the podcast the next day. So, but Nancy enjoyed her time so much. She wanted to come back and talk a little bit about Defiance and everything that's going on at Glenwood Caverns. So please welcome back to the Coaster101 podcast, the general manager of Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, Nancy Hurd. Nancy, welcome back.
Why, thank you. What a privilege. Thanks for having me.
Privilege is a word. That's high praise, but we'll take it.
I mean it, though.
We certainly appreciate it. But, Nancy, last time we chatted, you guys had just announced Defiance, this, largest investment in park history, Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster with all these crazy inversions, and it was going to kind of hang over the side of a mountain, be the tallest or the highest roller coaster, however we want to word that for marketing purposes. But, let's dive right in. How has the past year for you guys been at Glenwood Caverns?
Well, it's been a trying year. It's a big project, and it's kind of like having a baby. It was about a 9-month project. So now that all the labor pains are over with, we can sit back and enjoy the new addition to the family, so to speak. So, but it was a long, painful process to construct this thing in the winter months. At over 7,000 feet of elevation in the Rocky Mountains. I'm glad we are in August now and the ride's running, and it's being well received by our guests.
Yeah, I love it.
And speaking of those labor pains, can you talk a little bit about the construction of the coaster? I know when you were on last time, you were talking a little about how the trucks bringing the parts to the park was going to be an issue and getting them up that hillside.
Yeah, amazing. We have some, we're about 1,300 feet above the valley floor. And so we have these mining type roads, logging type roads. So all the steel, there's 25 containers that came over from Germany, and they all had to be brought up, maybe 3 or 4 parts at a time on a flatbed. So a semi had to make its way up these logging roads. And, it was pretty challenging given that it was March, April, May when all this was happening. So, but it actually our local providers, and of course we brought in Ride Entertainment to do the installation. Did a phenomenal job. But it was several months of bringing trucks into the park, up the logging roads. We had to do extra road maintenance, grading the roads and plowing the roads and doing whatever we could to try to get these trucks into the park. And of course, some trucks would come in and you couldn't get them turned around because there's nowhere to turn around. So we'd lift them up with a crane, lift the flatbed up, detach it from the cab, lift the flatbed up, turn it around 180 degrees so it could leave. And dump trucks getting up the steep roads. There's actually another low road that's not quite as steep, but the dump trucks would have to come, the concrete trucks would come up with, a third full, right? Because of the weight. So for normally what would take 1 concrete truck, it took 3 for us. So just, and the installer said for every hour that they would plan on spending in the installation process at any other park took an hour and a half. So it was 50% more time consuming and laborious.
Wow. And I've got to ask, I work with a lot of, truck drivers and logistics and operations like that. When the truck drivers arrive with these crates to the bottom of the mountain, what were some of the words that were said by the truck drivers? And keep in mind, this is a family-friendly podcast. But what was the feedback that you got from the truck drivers when they knew they would have to carry up those narrow roads?
Well, fortunately, we contracted with I have a little trick that I play when we're having a delivery of this magnitude. And of course, our business address is at the bottom of in town. And we have the gondola that takes you to the park. So I'd say, okay, meet me at the bottom and and I'll show you how to, we're not going to unload here, but I'm going to show you, just follow me. So I'm just going to go up this road a little bit. So they start following me, and then there's a point of no return because they can't turn around after they start up this road. So I had a few of them get angry with me. And some of those drivers never came back. But fortunately for this project, we engaged a local company. So the truckers came up from, the containers went to Houston by ship, and then by rail to Denver, and then by truck up to Glenwood. So we actually had a staging yard with a crane and a staging yard. So it was actually a local trucker who was very familiar with the terrain and could handle the task.
That local knowledge is definitely important. I've got one question though, and this is, you see the renderings of the video, the first renderings that came out of Defiance, and the track was tan, the supports were tan, but now that the coaster's built, we see it's green, has kind of these reddish supports. What was the difference kind of in the process there? Was there a change of heart in the painting? Was it supply chain? How did the coaster go from tan to green, from rendering to from concept to reality?
Well, it's funny because Gerstlauer never really necessarily, when they did their renderings, they did those for us. They never really, I don't think we ever really chose the colors, other than we're not going to do red and yellow and purple because we are in town. Well, not in town, but town is below us and you can see the mountain. So we want to be very cognizant of not being an eyesore on the mountain, right? So we told them that colors would be a consideration. So when they did the rendering, they picked some muted, sort of soft, not so bright colors. But when it came right down to it, I took the color palette from my office window and I looked outside and I tried to match the colors to the trees and the trees and the red rock. So that's really how it came to be. Is the rendering was never really a decision of color. It was really just a rendering, and then it was just a sophisticated process of me holding a color palette out my window and picking the colors that were most prevalent in the area.
I was wondering about that too, because you guys sent us some pictures, which you can see on the Coaster101.com website. And like the supports perfectly matching some of the mountains you can see in the background, and the track matches like the green hills. So that was really cool.
Yep.
But one thing, you advertised the coaster as the country's highest looping coaster because it's located 7,132 feet above sea level.
Yep.
So did you have to take that into consideration when you were designing the coaster? Like, were there any changes or anything that had to be made because of that high altitude?
The manufacturer did, and it had to do, I think, we have compressors that are high altitude compressors, and also I believe that there's something with the electricity, and I don't know exactly what those considerations were, but the manufacturer did have to take those into consideration, particularly with the compressors.
Okay. Well, we've got the coaster built. Let's in
the moment.
Yes, but you know what? I've got to apologize because I told you on that podcast a year ago I would be there for the grand opening, and I wasn't. I couldn't keep my word. I apologize. Real life gets in the way sometimes. I got a new job, PTO, all these excuses I'm going to make, but presumably you've ridden it multiple times. I gotta know what your thoughts are and your thoughts were after riding it the first time.
It's kind of interesting. I got to go first, and along with the maintenance director and the installer. And I tell people, because I'm most expendable in the company, I went first. But when we were doing the test runs, I'm on the deck. I'm on the deck watching it and watching it go up the lift hill, and you get, it goes up and you're on your back. And I felt like I was virtually having a virtual experience, like a virtual reality experience, because I started to get butterflies just watching it right on the test run go up, click, 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 and it goes up pretty quickly. Then it gets to the top of the 70-foot lift hill, and it looks out over this huge expanse of the Colorado River Valley, the Roaring Fork River Valley, and then when it dropped, I actually felt it. I actually felt like a drop in my stomach, and it was just exciting. And then I got to ride it, and of course, it was even better. But it was, and I've ridden it well over 20 times at this point. But it's really cool. I love the drops. Like I said, it goes up 70 feet, and when it comes down 110 feet, just because of the change in elevation. We're able to get a 110-foot drop out of it.
That's
So what's your favorite element?
The drop.
The drop?
As far as I'm concerned, all it really needs is a drop and then maybe a banked turn and it come back to the station. But they threw in a couple other elements, twisted hats, banana rolls, and the one coming into the station is the barrel roll that kind of comes into the 0G Heartline roll comes into the station, and that's you're twisting and going upside down, and that one kind of does me in. I'm not ready to get right back on it, but if all it did was drop and bank around and come back, I'd be on that all day long.
Yeah, and for our listeners who aren't as familiar with Defiance, which first of all you should be if you're listening to this podcast, but again, as Nancy mentioned, it's got that 110-foot drop at a 102.3 degree vertical angle, so beyond vertical. Even though that's possible in roller coaster world, I don't think that is possible in actual mathematics, but for marketing purposes, we're here for it. It does have those two inversions. It's got the banana roll, it's got the inline twist, and it's got the twisted top hat. But yeah, it is. If you haven't seen pictures of Defiance, and if you're listening, we'll have pictures of Defiance on the article that we highlight this episode with. It is truly, truly stunning and beautiful, and it looks like it's been there forever, which is great, and does kind of fit into that natural surroundings, I guess is the best way to put it. But, Nancy, you've ridden it 20 times, but you've also probably more than 20 times you've talked to park guests in the past month or so. What have park guests had to say? Have you got any memorable comments from the patrons of Glenwood Caverns?
Yes, absolutely. So what's kind of neat about it is it runs parallel to our gondola, which is the park access. So they get to look at it as they come, even coming off the gondola. You see people pointing to it, and I want to go there. So I can see them just even getting off the gondola and going, I'm going to go there. We got to go there. We got to get there first, Mom. And they go down there. What's really cool about the way it's positioned is that the brake run comes perpendicular right toward the queue area. So as you're in the queue area, you get to watch people come in right head on, right at you, and they're just coming out of that 0G Heartline roll. So their faces are, tells the story. Most of them have smiles on their faces. Others are bracing themselves. But as soon as they come upright again and into the station, it's nothing but smiles. And I think really the true testament is they get off the ride, they get right back in line, and that's the real testament to how much they like the ride.
I love it. That is just, again, I'm kicking myself a little bit. I mean, obviously, full employment benefits, all that good stuff is it's necessity to have, but I'm kind of kicking myself that I wasn't able to make it out there for that grand opening. It's just, again, the videos I've seen, and again, the park was kind enough to send us some, so check those out on our YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram. We've got them all over the place, but it is something just definitely to be seen. And I rode one of those Gerstlauer Eurofighters a couple weeks ago, actually down in Texas, and it was the first one I had been on that had like the tight footprint. And this one, being obviously a custom design, it's got so much in such a small package. I mean, there's only, the ride is less than a minute long, thereabouts. Nancy, is that about right?
Yeah, it's just under a minute. It's about 56 seconds.
So yeah, you get a lot of action in that minute time frame, and if you've never been on a Eurofighter or Infinity Coaster from Gerstlauer, make a point to try and find one. They're starting to pop up in, more reasonable places, at least in the East Coast to me. But they're so much fun, and I'm so glad that you guys got to have this kind of new shiny toy, basically.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing location as well.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's the view. You're not looking down into a parking lot, that's for sure. It's phenomenal. It's breathtaking. As you come up to the top of that lift hill, and you come from being on your back to sitting upright, and you really have like a moment, an instant to take it in before before the descent. So it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. But, obviously that is, we were talking a little bit before the show started. That's not the only new thing at Glenwood Caverns this year. And before you listeners are like, oh my gosh, what else did they get? It's not the sexiest things. It's infrastructure improvements. But can you talk a little bit about the infrastructure improvements at Glenwood Caverns this season?
Yeah, we're listening to our guests, and what is it that we need, and shade and seating. So we're continuing to work on more shade and seating. We put in several shade structures over the queue areas, and we are working on a pavilion, a tented pavilion, or a pavilion, a wood structure. We actually did add something new this year, and we added a second troll, and her name is Chantico, and she's the goddess of fire. So we intend to have 4 trolls in the end, and they will represent the elements. So the first one was Halvor, and he's the keeper of the earth. So, and then we've got the fire, and that's Chantico, and then ultimately we'll get water and wind. So Chantico is here, and she lights up at night with a flame, and she's a 14-foot tall troll that you get your picture taken with her. And but yeah, so those are some of the infrastructure improvements in addition to our obviously very sizable capital investment.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
those trolls, is the park naming those? Are those names coming from mythology? I've never heard of Chantico, the god of fire. You're rubbing your hands together. There's a story here. I can't wait. Let's go.
Well, I always like it when the name that I chose wins. So I chose Chantico, but we choose it. So they don't come with a name. We choose the names. We knew that we wanted to represent the elements, the 4 elements, and so we brainstormed some names. We put it out there to our leadership team and our operations teams, and got some feedback. And so really that's how it came about. That's inside job.
Okay, understood. I got it. But yeah, you were rubbing the hands really good. You're like, yes, I did it. So yes, I love it.
Well, because it was against the better judgment of the CEO, but when who didn't like the name. So so the fact that it won made me really happy.
I love it. And as we're kind of narrowing down this, winding down the summer season and heading into the fall, Glenwood Caverns, they've got some events this fall as well. They've got an Oktoberfest event as well as a Halloween event. What can you tell us about those?
Yes, really looking forward to getting through Labor Day, which will be a busy weekend, and then the fall is just so beautiful. Yeah, it fall's beautiful anywhere, but our weather is very predictable, and so we get 300 days of sunshine. So Oktoberfest is a lot of fun, and then this year actually we're planning, and it's not completely finalized, but we're planning to do some sort of event around Halloween. Not so much a fright fest, but more a festival of lights, decorations, lights. Staying open at night. We're toying around with what that's going to look like. It'll be a couple weekends at the end of October, and then we'll roll into our what we call Winter on the Mountain and Festival of Lights and Santa and fire pits and s'mores and things like that. Trying to freshen up our winter activities because we are open year round. A lot of people don't know that we are open year round. Extended weeks at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then after that, we're open weekends only, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays for January, February. So we are open year round. We have the gondola and we have the cave, which is open year round. We have some indoor attractions like laser tag and the 4D theater, motion theater, and then we keep our mountain coaster open year round. It might take us a whole day to dig it out, but we found that even with a whole day of shoveling, if we could have that open on Saturday, Sunday, it's really what our guests want. So we'll get it open.
Is that how you dig it out, like manually? There's not like a car that you can attach a snowplow to or something like that?
Yeah, it's funny because the manufacturer did work on a solution for that, but it was a $30,000 solution. So we figured we could get a lot of shovelers for $30,000.
Oh gosh.
So it really is a manual process, unfortunately. And we actually do have a car that we modified for just for some snow removal, and put some brushes on it and to get the track, because if you get the tubes on the track, but then the rest of it's really shoveling to get from underneath the track and whatnot.
These are the things you don't think of, with America's only mountaintop amusement park, especially in the Colorado Rockies. You're dealing with the elements, I feel like, more so than the typical average chain amusement park, for sure.
Absolutely. One, for where we are, right? Two, for the fact that we open year round. It's like, really? Everyone else is skiing, Well, we're trying to give the skiers something to do on their day off after they're done skiing. Or typically people will take a day off. If they're here to ski for a week, they might take 1 to 2 days off from skiing. So we look to them. We want to be their alternate activity while they're here.
Perfect. And Nancy, last time you were on the podcast, another benefit of talking to a non-corporate park is you're a little more willing to tell us things. And,
what do you want?
No. I mean this in the best way possible. But, in the episode that we talked to you last, I said, is there anything else coming down the pipeline in the future? And you kind of hinted at this suspended play structure for kids. And I didn't know if there was any progress or announcement to be made or anything like that as to when that could be expected or any progress had been made. But is there any status update? I think that'll be a good word. Status?
It's still. We want to kind of get through and realize some return on our investment of this sizable investment, and sort of relish in this, in the Defiance. So we're and we ran out of money with Defiance, kind of broke the bank. So it is still on the docket as on our wish list of things that we want to do, but we are going to slow down this year. And like I said, just kind of slow down the pace a little bit. It's in terms of and just kind of take in the success of Defiance, and then start up again the following year. And that's still one of my top choices, is a suspended play area. And we do get some feedback from our guests that we don't have enough for the children to do. And this way we have an opportunity. We also have a big sandbox with a fossil dig. So a parent could sit there with a toddler in the sand pit and let their little older kids, the adolescents or the little older kids, playing in the suspended play area, and then just kind of visualize that right next to the bar in case you might want to have a beverage while you're watching your kids. So anyway, that's kind of where we're headed there with kind of the next big thing.
Perfect. But you can't you don't want the shiny new toy to not be as shiny. I completely get that.
Yeah. Yep. And we just need to slow the pace down a little bit.
Understood.
I need to go into a summer without a major project.
That's what I was going to ask, because you put all this time and energy and effort into getting this major attraction open. Do you have time afterwards to just sit back and relax and enjoy your accomplishment, or is it just right into the next thing?
It's funny because we really wanted to get this open in May, but like I said, it was really challenging. There were supply chain issues. We had challenges with the installation, 77 footers, on a rocky hillside in the winter, trying to excavate and pour 77 footers. So we had some delays. So had this opened in May, I'd say, there might have been a month in there for me to sit back and relish the, and just soak in all the, relish in all the activity. And so that time got cut short because we didn't get this open until July 1st. But it's funny you mentioned that, because just today I was talking to the HR director. I said, this is the 2 or 3 weeks where I actually get to just enjoy, the park is bustling. It's beautiful. The flowers look good. It's just, we're well staffed, and there's 2 or 3 weeks where you can really enjoy that in the summer. And that's where I'm at right now.
And you can go on podcasts and talk to nerdy coaster enthusiasts, and it's just, we appreciate the time for sure. This is awesome. One thing you kind of touched on this here, but what is something, as a general manager of a park, not necessarily a smaller park, but just as a park in general, that the average guest does not realize about your job?
The average guest wonders, what do I do in the winter? Like, they say, so what do you do? Like, they don't understand. Okay, September is like completely engrossed in budget season, right? Most people don't understand that if they're not in the industry, that I'm 6 months ahead of what's going on in the park. So the fact that I get 2 or 3 weeks right now to sort of relish in the moment, we're going to go right into budget season and projections for 23. That's a month-long process, and then staying ahead of, CapEx and rehab. And, they just don't understand that you're 6 months to a year ahead of the business.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. I think that is a common misconception in the industry. It's like, especially at the regional parks, down here in the Southeast, like, I've got friends at Carowinds who will ask them, so what do you do when the park's closed? And it's like, we still work. I mean, there's only a lot of stuff to do while the park is closed for the season. So it's definitely that common misconception. But
and I used to work for the ski areas for 16 years, and I would get the same questions. What do you do in the summer? Oh, nothing.
Vacation, chill, sit by the pool. It's all good. And then, on top of that, I've got this questions I want to ask. It's like, as the general manager again, what is the most challenging aspect of your job? Does it have to be that you're always on and 6 months ahead? But what are the biggest challenges you face?
The biggest challenges I face are really the balance between the needs of the guests and the needs of your direct reports, the department heads. When you got 8 or 9 department heads, and they need things, right? The company needs things, they need things. And then you're also managing up for what is needed from you. So you sort of get this pull, I think, with any position really, but you get this pull between the job is very different when you manage up than it is when you manage down. And then, of course, the expectations of the guest, all the while trying to deliver a really quality product. Our mission is very simple: to make people smile, and we take that very seriously. We take smiling very seriously, and then manage that with the needs of your managers. Who, once we get into summer season, the work-life balance is really difficult. I'm not a great model of that. So it's I think it's really hard to keep people some work-life balance and to give them what they need, if that's in terms of resources or labor. And this year being, these last couple of years being very difficult, post-COVID labor shortages and the push to push wages. And I think we moved our wages probably 30% in the last 5 years. Wow. And those are big hits on a company. If your top line's not keeping pace with your increases in labor. So then what happens? You increase your prices, right? Then what happens? You get pushback from your guests. And, so it's kind of just keeping all that in balance.
Got it. Okay, well, I'm going to end, after the difficult question, I'm going to end with a happy question. As the general manager, what is the most rewarding part about your job?
Oh, my God, that is twofold, because I'm out in the park this time of year and interacting with guests. And I often don't wear a uniform. I don't like to wear a uniform with my name tag and my title. I often don't, because then people treat you differently, So I don't wear a uniform. It doesn't take them long to figure out I'm not a guest. But listening to the guests and listening to why they came here, who they're with. Oh my God, your employees are the greatest. This place is so great. This is, to really, when you go back to the core of our mission statement, making people smile. In the end, we're not selling T-shirts. We're not selling, a product. We're selling an experience. And I really do enjoy watching our guests, get so satisfied. And the other side of that coin is I really enjoy our employees and interacting with them. And in the summer months, I really get to do that. So, and then developing and mentoring and developing employees and, treating them really fairly, and hope that, someday they look back on this job and say, wow, that was the best company I've ever worked for.
I love it. That's such a great outlook to have. I feel like it's just, again, you want to take care of your guests, but taking care of your employees and making sure they're happy so the guests are happy. That is just such a refreshing viewpoint, I feel like, to have. And I love your enthusiasm. It just, in talking to you last year and then talking to you this year, your enthusiasm just like radiates through the screen here. And I love it so much. So
Thank you.
We'll have to turn this into an annual tradition and do this again next August.
Okay.
We'll put it on the books. We'll have your people call our people. Assuming we're still doing this podcast next August, you're in.
All right. I'm putting it on my calendar.
I love it. Well, Nancy, before we wrap this episode, is there anything else you want to highlight about Glenwood Caverns, or give us your 7,000-foot elevator pitch again?
Yeah, just get up here. That's our hashtag. Get up here. It's a fun experience. It's a small family park that finally has sort of come of age a little bit. Gotten into the big leagues, but will never be and never want to be too big, because we want to be able to have the bandwidth and the ability to continue to stay within our core competencies and provide a good product. So get up here, come see us, Glenwood Springs. Come skiing in the winter. Come see us. It's yeah.
I'm gonna take that get up here mantra, demand, well, however you're going to phrase it to me. I'm working on it, Nancy. I promise it's coming. We will get out there eventually. Once I figure out my PTO from work, it's going to be great. It's
Aren't you the boss?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Oh.
New job. We're back on the totem pole a little bit, but it's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, we have, we also have a sister property that's Iron Mountain Hot Springs, which is fun to soak in the hot springs in the evening. And there's 16 small mineral pools, and we're expanding and adding 10 more pools. So that's our sister property at the base of the gondola, and it's on the river. So it's a neat experience. Rather than a big hot springs, it's 16 individual pools plus 10 more in a few months. And,
I like it.
That's really a cool experience because you're on the riverbank and you're just sitting there soaking, watching the ducks and the rafters and the boaters and people go by. So it's a neat experience.
This could be a way to sell my non-coaster enthusiast fiance. I like where your head's at, Nancy.
All right.
But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster101 podcast. Be sure to check out Glenwood Caverns. Their website is glenwoodcaverns.com. They're also on all forms of social media at Glenwood Caverns. Just search for it. You'll be able to find them. And like Glenwood Caverns, we also have a website, coaster101.com. And we, too, are on all of the social medias at Coaster101. So that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Search us. You'll find us. I think we're on Pinterest, too. We get a lot of traffic from Pinterest for some reason. I don't get it. But if you're listening, make sure you're also liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, and leaving 5-star reviews on Spotify and iTunes, because the more reviews we get, the more people who listen to the show, and then the more guests we get who are amazing guests like Nancy who want to come back. So please do that. It helps more people find us, more people listen. But thanks, as always, to Justin Mabry of J Music Design. And Nancy, thank you again for, gracing us with your presence and talking a little bit of Defiance with us. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we will talk to y'all again soon. See ya.